So maybe you want there to be some kind of other additional visual effect, like maybe there's some kind of theme to the game that you kind of want to hint to in your opening credits. So what we can do is we're going to create a particle system, and as in my other videos, I'm just going to go through this quickly because particle systems are so complicated. They deserve an entire series on their own, and um, so you can like follow along to see what I do, but I'm not going to go through it because the particle system alone would take a while to explain. But I'll give the highlights as I'm talking. So first I'm going to rotate it towards the screen because I really don't want it traveling in any direction in any kind of major way, but I do want it to ever so slightly move out in every direction, and that this is one of the ways that you can accomplish that. Also, we want it to be squarish, or maybe I should say rectangular. Maybe there's some kind of color theme that you're using. And a lot of this is trial and error. That's what I was looking for. As you can see, just changing one aspect, just one component, or I shouldn't even say component, one attribute, makes such huge difference in the overall appearance. Change in time so you don't have that popping effect of something not being there suddenly being there full size and then again disappearing. So basically you have this, as far as size is concerned, this kind of fade in and fade out where it's not instantly that size. Change the level of transparency, and that alone, as you can see, gives it much more kind of ethereal, more of kind of a glow. Okay, so we're getting there. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so first thing, it needs to be pre-warmed. This is an example where you want it to be pre-warmed because you don't want to see it slowly fade into existence. You want it to already be there. So just a little bit, tweaking a couple things. There we go. The border staying pretty consistent color. Now that one change gives it more of a cellular appearance, like something happening under a microscope. So again, one little change makes such a huge difference. And now that we increased the emission, we can change the size. I think that does it. Okay, so here's how this is going to work. You move this off, out of sight. Okay. Go back to mouse over. We need to make the text object aware of that particle system. So we'll create the variable. Now again, because the script is attached to multiple objects, they'll all be looking for it, but that's okay. They won't be using it. Well, two of them will be using it. I should say that the title at the top won't be using it. And here's where it comes together. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at mouse over. This is checking to see if it's start text. That is if the object is start text. And what we're going to do here is we're going to reference that object. So we have to say glow.getComponent. So rather than just saying getComponent, which will change a component of the object the script is attached to, by prefacing it with prefacing the statement with the variable, you're saying, okay, I'm getting a component of this object, which is represented by this variable. So huge difference between these two statements. And we are moving it. So oops, sorry about that. Autocomplete fail. And let's see where that is. Looks like it's right around. Well, that's off to the left though, because the text mesh uses the left as the pivot point. So 0 even. We'll try 0. Try 0 0. Actually, no, going to be lower than 0. So try 0 -2. Do is for mouse exit, we need to move it back. And there it is. Your glow appears, so not quite right. Into extremes. The particle system's a little bit big, a little bit overwhelming, but you get the feeling, you get the idea of what is happening. Is you can, if there's some kind of visual effect, some kind of theme, you can utilize it here as your cursor. So let's do one more thing. Say you want the title to actually fade in or zoom in rather than just immediately splashing on the screen. So let's do that. So even though I said that we're going to include all the functionality within that one script, because this is a little bit complicated, we're going to give it its own script, because the if statement that we're going to have to use is going to be a little bit messy to look at anyways. So we click on the object, click on new script, let's go into it, and first thing I'm going to do is going to create a couple variables. So let's call it XY scale. Start off at 0.2, and this is going to be a float, so that means we have to put in the letter F here. We're going to use another float, and that's going to be total time. We'll set that to 0, and then I'm going to paste this all at once, but then we'll talk about it. Okay, so here's the total time variable. We're saying if total time plus time.delta time, well, we're just adding it, excuse me, there's no if yet, we're just adding it in. All this does is, when this command is executed, it simply says how much time has passed since the last time this has been executed, and it adds that amount of time in. So it's basically a way of incrementing based on time, not based on frame rate. So here's the statement. So the whole thing has to be surrounded by parentheses. So you got one here, and you got one here, and then the individual elements also have to be surrounded by parentheses. What this says is if this variable total time exceeds 0.05 seconds, and yes, it's a double ampersand, and if the XY scale is less than 1, which it is because we set it to 0.2, then go ahead and do the next three statements. Increase the XY scale, so that means eventually it will reach 1 and this will stop. And this is fairly arbitrary. This is whatever you want it to be increased by. So increase the XY scale variable. Reset total time back to 0, because that's the whole point, is you only want this to be done when a certain amount of time has passed. And then here's our good old get component. Change the scale. And in this case, this is why I named it XY, because we're using the same variable for both. And that should do it. So let's save this. No errors. And actually, since this starts as 1, we need to make it to match the value we use. Actually, we used 0.2. And so this is going to zoom in. It's a little slow. Your preference, how you want it to look. So let's double that. And maybe you want it to fade in. There's no point copying that because too much has to be changed. Actually, the only variable we're changing, we want these all to be set at 1, is the fourth one, the alpha channel. And like say we want it to be 50%. So actually, we could use the XY scale there too, since they're all between 0 and 1. There we go. That should do it.